Hey everyone, hanging out at SuperTraining Gym with Jessica, the Jessica Smith. And what I want to talk about today is ways to get more out of your hip circles, ways to prep. So why do we use hip circles? What's that about?
Activation, warming up.
Warming up, activation, getting my brain to know what my butt does for a living. I think that's an old coach quote somewhere. Right.
Totally.
Now, here's the key, is to appreciate understanding what we're doing, because we know it works, right? I do a lot of this. But what I want to do is help you conceive of why we think this is so important. So you have in your body 10 muscles that flex your leg. Bring your knee to your chest, 10 muscles. But you have 13 muscles that create external rotation in your body. 13 muscles do this. So it's almost like your evolution, your physiology, is all about being able to create power off the ground through rotation, right? Now, the key here is to understand a couple things. One, if I have Lady Jess, she's pretty strong, she's stronger than I am, but if I have you get into a squat position, go ahead, just get into a squat position, high squat, just get your feet straight for me, come on, like an adult.
A what?
Just, there you go, hold that position. Now watch this. I'm going to try to pull her knees in. Don't let me win. Hold, don't let me move you. Hold, come on, resist, push out, come on. Come on, come on. I'm gonna try to break you, don't look weak. Okay, now watch this, put your knees out. Turn your feet out a little bit. Ah, it feels so good, right? Now watch what happens to her ability to create power. Hold, don't let me move you. Hold, 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 hold.
Okay.
Whoa, 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 what was up? So go turn out a little further, because I see people squat and do all kinds of crazy stuff out here, right? Hold that position, don't let me move you. This is not a gimmick, hold. What's happening is that as I take her to more and more of her end range, you notice I'm able to just have a casual conversation doing that?
I'm like dying.
As I take her more to her physiologic end range, that length-tension relationship of the hip starts to be changed. And so she's just weaker at end range. That's all that is. When you get moved towards end range, you're just not as strong. If I hand you lots of weights, you're like, I got it. I'm like, now curl it back up. You're like, I can't, right? You're at end range. Mm-hmm. Well, same thing's true of the hip. So it's really interesting that human foot function designs to be relatively straight. And we mean straight-ish, right? You still got a window, maybe 10 degrees, where you can still create a lot of that rotation. You can do this at home for yourself. If you just say, stand there with your feet straight, and I want you to just tear this platform in half, just rip it in half, screw your feet into the ground. Right foot is going clockwise, left foot, rip it in half, go ahead. Grr. That's a lot of power, I can measure that.
Yeah.
Now turn your feet out for me. Do the same thing, create as much power as you can. What happened?
Oh, yeah, I can't.
Can't.
As much. Yeah.
So it's interesting, we're doing a lot of priming of the hip, but I want to make sure that we're priming it in a position where we still have access to our power, right? And remember, we're still going to squat today. We're going to get you into the best position we can. If you have to turn your feet out a little bit because your hips are tied or you have an old injury or ankle, that's fine. It's just not going to be as powerful for creating the kind of isometric power required to do the things we want. Now, the key here is understanding this, is that imagine I have a big, strong athlete here, and her pelvis is set on a couple of femurs that look like this, right? And so imagine there's just, this pelvis sits down, and then we have these two ball and socket joints. So what is creating the rotation here and stability? Right, just what, your quads and your hips and your hamstrings? Those are big, long muscles. Well, remember, we have 13 muscles that create this rotational power. And so what ends up happening is one of the ways that we create a stable head, torso, upper body, pelvis on femur relationship is by getting a strong isometric contraction between the femur and the pelvis through rotation. And that's why the hip circle is so important. That's why we're such fans of priming this anti-rotation isometric. The more effectively I can turn on and recruit all of those systems that allow me to externally rotate, the more effectively I can control the knee or the pelvis upstream. And if not, you're going to start to see a bunch of other silly stuff happen, right? Mm-hmm. So what we've said to a lot of people in the past is that's weakness, right? And I guarantee you there's nothing weak about this system. So don't just pass it off as weakness, but coordination, practice, that makes a difference. In fact, if I throw Lady Jess on her back here, go ahead, head here. What I want to show you is that one of the things that we're looking at with our athletes is trying to make sure that they have enough range. Now, Jess was a collegiate rower. She's a pretty phenomenal athlete. This is full hip flexion. That's pretty rocking. But also, we have to be looking at rotation. And this rotation window on Jess is actually phenomenal, right? It's one of the reasons she's such an effective mover. We want to see 30 to 45 degrees this direction and 30 to 45 degrees this direction. Now, she may not be at a full 45, but this is world-class range, which gives her more options. Because a lot of times what happens is that we see athletes have some external rotation, no internal rotation. So it means when it comes to create stability time, isometric control time, they have only one position they can put the leg and the foot in to get that depth, which is turning off the light switches in the room, right? We want to keep the room as bright as possible with as much movement choice as possible. So there's pretty good research about where you're putting the band, how it affects the glute recruitment. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons to use different positions, but I want to show you a couple different choices. Now remember, we have 13 muscles that help to resist this rotation and create this external rotation. So what I'm about to show you should make more sense. Pop on up for me. So if you're looking for the easiest place and the place to have the least effect of the band, put that hip circle on your knees for me, would you? So in this position, there's some rotational moment arm. There's some mechanical advantage leverage. In this shape, there's not very much, right? Your knees are getting pulled in a little bit, but there's not a lot of rotational resistance that needs to be happening. So what do? We end up squatting down a little bit. Now that moment arm has improved a little bit, but I still am not even at 90 degrees. So what we see is that people go to a pretty mid-range, and notice that she automatically chose a very straightforward foot position there. Isn't that weird? That you're like, I'm stronger in this position.
Yeah.
Go ahead and turn your feet out.
Why?
No one monster walks like that. It feels terrible. Do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one position, and one of the reasons I like this shape in this height is that it allows us to actually work through full ranges pretty effortlessly, right? So now, instead of just holding this shape, the easiest way to start to get a little bit more out of your hip circle is to actually do more full ranges. Instead of just walking in this really powerful range, no one I know is weak in this position.
Okay.
Right, and this is where we all love to do our hip circle work. Why? Because I'm at the top of the deadlift, I'm standing out of the squat, I'm in my kettlebell swing position, I'm strong there. So take that into some weaker positions. So don't keep it there. Same squat, but just give me a little simple air squat, right? So you're actually working in a bigger range. Slow that down a little bit, give yourself a chance to fight that power. Come on back up. Go and do a hip hinge like a deadlift setup. So suddenly now we can change that angle a little bit, but at the knee, this is an easy way to be priming this. And believe it or not, I use this hip circle on my knees for even some of our Olympic rowers just to get them to turn their butt on so when they push, they can feel their butt, right?
Yep.
It's super simple. Now, it turns out the lower that is, maybe I'm also creating the distance which creates higher mechanical advantage for the band. So the further that band goes to the ankle, if we just slide that down to the ankle, all of a sudden, right? Suddenly it's a pretty big band there. But now if she does that squat potentially or walking, we see suddenly that, hey, I potentially have to work harder because I have less mechanical advantage out there. But in my squat, go ahead and do the squat, there's nothing there, right? Because we're not challenging that. So enter where we see some of the greatest recruitment, and that is at the foot. So this is why we love these small bands that you all have created, because when you put that around your feet, whatever one is the right one for you is fine. She puts that around the front of the foot. Suddenly we have this resistance that we have to fight. So the band is trying to internally rotate me, right? It's trying to twist the whole foot. And what do I have to do? Not just bring the knee out, but I have to maintain the rotation. So if we have even just in this position walking, just sidestep a little bit, you've suddenly got to work your butt off so that your feet don't turn in, and that's creating higher resistance, higher load at the rotation of the hip. That's why if you're really going for bang for the buck, I can be trying to bring the knees in and rotate and create rotation. So if you already have a hip circle, fantastic. Add a mini band around the foot, a mobility pack around the foot, and suddenly we start to see that I have to control this big lever and this rotation piece, and I guarantee you your butt will cook. Want to try it?
Sure.
Do it. Slip it on. Slip on the blue one too.
Oh God. Around my ankles?
Yeah, well do that one around the knee.
This one?
And we'll do the mobility pack band around your foot.
Oh, you're really trying to.
Well, you know what they say, if lifting weights is fun, lifting more weights is more fun, right?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. Someone said that. And suddenly that's super nasty. And there's no place to hide. And look what position she adopted. The strongest position she owns. Get your butt down, girl. Now show me what's up. Now take that through a full range, hip hinge, squat, right? Whatever you want to work on. And you're seeing that you're having to do a ton of priming. So what I'm telling you is you're probably already on a hip circle, but adding in another small band around the foot can skyrocket the effect. Because what we're trying to do here is not get strong. We're trying to teach the brain to maintain those strong isometrics in that position so that your big movers of your glutes and hamstrings and quads can do what they're supposed to do, which is stand up and down.
Not gonna lie, that burns.
Hey, her words, not mine. See you guys tomorrow.